Chthon and Cyttorak stand as two of the most terrifying primordial forces in all of Marvel's mystical hierarchy, being so ancient that reality itself feels like a fragile experiment in their presence. And when you strip away the myths, the spells, and the mortal interpretations, what remains is something far more disturbing: two godlike intelligences that don't just use power, but define what power even means. Before the clash begins, you have to understand what these entities truly are. Chthon is not simply a demon or a sorcerer. He is an elder god, one of the first dark intelligences to ever crawl through the cracks of creation. A being who mastered chaos magic at its purest origin, shaping reality through corruption, probability manipulation, and forbidden knowledge. He is the author behind the Darkhold, a book so cursed that entire civilizations have fallen just by studying its pages. Chthon doesn't just cast spells. He infects reality with thought itself, turning belief into corruption and imagination into decay. His influence spreads like a psychic virus, whispering through dimensions, waiting for weak minds to open a door that can never truly be closed again. And then there is Cyttorak. Where Chthon is chaos and corruption, Cyttorak is inevitability and destruction made conscious. He is not merely a god of power. He is the Crimson Cosmos itself, an entire dimension forged from endless crimson energy and unstoppable force. Cyttorak does not manipulate magic in the traditional sense. He embodies raw, physical inevitability. His influence manifests as unstoppable momentum, overwhelming force, and a destructive law where once something begins, it cannot be stopped. Even the legendary Juggernaut draws his power from Cyttorak's crimson gem, becoming a walking embodiment of unstoppable destruction, a living extension of Cyttorak's will. Now imagine these two forces meeting, not on Earth, not on any simple battlefield, but in a fractured space between dimensions where reality itself struggles to stabilize. The air is not air, the ground is not ground. It is a shifting overlap of nightmare logic and burning crimson geometry. The moment awareness locks between them, the entire universe trembles, as if something fundamental has just been challenged. Chthon strikes first because he always does. He does not move in a physical sense. Instead, thought itself bends outward from him like tendrils of invisible corruption. The Darkhold's energy manifests as shadowed sigils exploding through space, rewriting the rules of existence in localized pockets. Entire sections of reality begin to rot, not physically but conceptually. Time stutters, causality fractures, and illusions of past and future bleed into one another. Chthon attempts to overwrite Cyttorak's existence, to redefine him as a concept that can be erased. But Cyttorak does not respond like a mind. He responds like impact. The Crimson Cosmos erupts outward in a wave of unstoppable force, not moving through space but redefining it. The corruption Chthon spreads collides with pure inevitability, and for the first time, something resists the Elder God's conceptual domination without even acknowledging it. Where Chthon rewrites meaning, Cyttorak enforces momentum. The result is not a clash of fists, but a collision of metaphysical laws. Chthon adapts instantly. He shifts from corruption to manipulation, reaching into Cyttorak's perception itself. Illusions of infinite loops appear, endless realities where Cyttorak's force is redirected, absorbed, or reflected. He tries to trap Cyttorak not in space, but in interpretation, forcing the Crimson God to experience resistance where none should exist. The battlefield fractures into mirrored dimensions, each one a different version of victory and defeat. But Cyttorak is not fooled by perception. He is the principle of once begun, cannot be stopped. And so he continues. His power escalates. The Crimson Cosmos expands like a heartbeat of destruction, each pulse rewriting the layered illusions Chthon constructs. Reality begins to buckle under the sheer insistence of Cyttorak's existence. What Chthon creates as possibility, Cyttorak crushes as inevitability. The battlefield becomes a war between what could be and what must be. Chthon realizes brute influence will not be enough, so he goes deeper. He calls upon the oldest part of himself, the Elder God essence buried beneath millennia of evolution and imprisonment. His form expands into a vast, incomprehensible presence, no longer humanoid but a sprawling consciousness of darkness threaded through infinite dimensions. The Darkhold opens across reality like a wound, and every page becomes a command. He attempts to rewrite Cyttorak not as an opponent, but as a subordinate force, something that exists within his narrative instead of outside it. For a moment, it seems to work. The Crimson Cosmos flickers. The unstoppable force hesitates. And that hesitation is all Chthon needs to attempt a final overwrite, an existential deletion aimed at collapsing Cyttorak into a concept that never achieved independence. But then the turning point arrives. Cyttorak stops resisting and starts defining. Instead of pushing forward, the Crimson Cosmos turns inward, compressing itself into a singular point of absolute inevitability. That point explodes outward not as energy, but as law, a law that declares, "I cannot be rewritten." The illusions shatter. The rewritten realities collapse. The Darkhold trembles as its own curses begin to lose structure under the pressure of absolute momentum. Chthon reacts with fury, unleashing the full depth of chaos magic. Reality storms, dimensional inversion, psychic annihilation waves that erase thought before it can form. Entire layers of existence disintegrate into abstract nothingness. But Cyttorak does not retreat. He advances through collapse itself, each step reinforcing the idea that destruction is not an event, but a certainty. Now the battlefield is no longer about manipulation versus force. It becomes something deeper, control versus inevitability. Chthon attempts one final strategy, the fusion of chaos and consciousness, trying to bind Cyttorak within an eternal recursive loop of self-doubt, where even inevitability begins to question itself. He reaches into the concept of Cyttorak's identity, trying to redefine him as something that can choose to stop. For the first time, Cyttorak pauses, not because he is weakened, but because the concept is foreign choice. And in that pause, the universe holds its breath. Then Cyttorak answers, not with thought, but with absolute rejection. The Crimson Cosmos flares brighter than ever before, collapsing the idea of hesitation entirely. In its place, a singular truth is enforced across every layer of existence. Momentum cannot be negotiated. The loop breaks. Chthon is forced back, his consciousness fracturing under the weight of enforced inevitability. The Darkhold flickers violently as pages burn themselves out, unable to maintain structure in a reality that no longer accepts manipulation as a dominant rule. The final exchange is not a battle, it is a conclusion. Cyttorak's force expands one last time, not as an attack, but as finality itself. Chthon's essence is not destroyed, but contained, pushed back into the deeper shadows of existence, where chaos can no longer override fundamental law. He survives, but his influence is suppressed, constrained, and limited. And so the verdict becomes clear. At peak power, Chthon is one of the most dangerous manipulators of reality in existence, capable of corrupting universes through knowledge, chaos magic, and dimensional influence. But Cyttorak represents something older and more absolute, the principle that once unstoppable force is set into motion, no concept, no illusion, and no magic can ultimately prevent its outcome. In raw metaphysical hierarchy, Chthon dominates through complexity, but Cyttorak wins through inevitability. The final result is this: Cyttorak is more powerful in terms of ultimate cosmic certainty, and in a direct confrontation of their highest forms, Cyttorak would win, because chaos can rewrite possibility, but inevitability defines the ending.